Thank you. Thanks, John. So this is a joy for me because I'm going to introduce the 26th Congressional District candidate. But first I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. His name is Andy Caldwell. He's a really well-known name on the Central Coast. Woohoo! John, let's give it up. Yeah. Andy is the CEO of Corporation of Labor, Ag, and Business, CoLab. It's known by CoLab. He is a regular opinion piece writer in the papers in Santa Barbara County and also in San Luis County. He has a radio show every afternoon from 3 to 5 on KUHL. He loves life. He's the father of 7 daughters. 6 daughters. Oh, maybe that's and 1 boy. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, 7 anyhow. And I told him, he is an answer to prayer for this congressional district. So I'm going to just read to you what we at Right to Life think. So, to whom it may concern, the Board of Right to Life of the Central Coast would like it to be known that we heartily endorse without reservation Andy Caldwell for the 24th, for the 24th Congressional District, and Andy holds a life view that recognizes all life is sacred and worthy of protection. He views the more than 60 million babies that have been aborted since Roe versus Wade decision by the Supreme Court as an affront to the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States by taking away the protection from the unborn and those that currently, oh, John, this was not a good copy. I think this was my first copy. I know, and Andy fixed it for me, right, Andy? When I sent it to him, it's like, oh, okay. And those who hold the current anti-life culture that says it's not worthy of life. We would encourage all voters who believe that all human life is deserving of protection and dignity to support Andy Caldwell for Congress in the upcoming election on March 3rd, 2020. Signed by John Lindgren, President. Here's Andy Caldwell. Hey, Andy.
Well, I want to thank you for being here today and for inviting me to speak with you. Right around the founding of our country, there was a thing called a Great Awakening. In that Great Awakening, one of the moments that has always been remembered was a sermon by a guy named Jonathan Edwards. And the name of that sermon was Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. Somehow we went from sinners in the hands of an angry God to God in the hands of angry sinners. That's where we are today. As one writer said, in times of universal deceit, what we're doing today, telling truth, is a revolutionary act. I want to tell you, how did our country go from one nation under God that was founded on a principle that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Happiness wasn't narcissism, it wasn't hedonism, it wasn't pleasure. Happiness by then was defined as blessedness, the ability to do God's will in your life and live with a good conscience in your life, unfettered by government and pressures of society. It was freedom of conscience and faith. So let me tell you how this building over here and that movement that it represents came to be. Because it helps you to understand what you're fighting against, to fight intelligently. There was a guy named Thomas Malthus, who was a cleric and a famous philosopher. And he came up with the theory that Earth was threatened by human population because the carrying capacity of Earth with regard to food and water and other resources was limited. Therefore, you have limited resources, unlimited population. Therefore, population was a threat to the planet Earth. In the name of Malthus, they let millions of people starve to death all over the world in places like India and other places like that, because they said, if we save them from malnutrition, if we save them from famine, they will simply reproduce and more people will die. So they let them die in the name of saving the planet. Well, then there was a guy named Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin came along, and his theory was called survival of the fittest. What did that mean? He looked at mankind as part of the animal kingdom and said the fit will survive. So let's put Malthus plus Darwin, and you come up with Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger believed in what's called eugenics. So they took Malthus' theory and Darwin's theory, and A plus B equals C, eugenics. What did eugenics mean? We need to prevent the birth and lives of inferior people who threaten the survival of the fittest. Those inferior people in Margaret Sanger's time were primarily minority populations. Adolf Hitler made the eugenic movement popular. Adolf Hitler got his theory of eugenics, which ended up exterminating 7 million people in World War II. He got his papers, his talking points, and his policy papers from here in America, from the colleagues of Margaret Sanger. Hence, after the World War II, eugenics fell into disfavor. So they went back to saving the planet from overpopulation, and then they came up with a bigger, better lie. We're going to call killing babies Planned Parenthood. So this whole thing is built on a lie. It's built on false premises, and it ignores this concept that we have unalienable right to life, everyone. Back in not that long ago, when Bill Clinton was president, they used to talk about, well, abortion should be safe, and it should be legal, and it should be rare. We've gone from that to now this movement called Shout Your Abortion. That abortion is something to be proud of. Abortion is a defining moment in a woman's life, in a statement of independence. And then beyond that, we've now gone to infanticide, where even if the baby's born alive, we'll make the decision then whether it can continue to live. And even worse than that, we're now selling baby parts. We're now selling infants' organs for profit. Make no mistake about it, this is a business. And the Bible talks about the gates of hell, that the gates of hell will not prevail against the church. This is a gate of hell. It is based on a lie, and it's based on murder. But here's the point. They claim that they're defending women's rights. But the fact of the matter is there is nothing more womanly or feminine than being a mother. There is nothing that makes a woman feel more alive and more fulfilled than being a mother. And not only is this not a war for women, it ends up becoming a war against women because of a concept known as gendercide. So in societies like China, when they had a one-child policy, the families in China, if they had to make a choice, they're going to have a son. A son means everything in that society, as well as many other societies in the world. So literally tens of millions of girls got aborted simply because they weren't a boy. It's gendercide. And this has happened the world over, where hundreds of millions of girls never got to live in the name of protecting women's rights. Again, it's based on a lie. The other lie about this thing is, where are the men? Where are the men that should be held responsible and accept responsibility for their reproductive responsibilities? They love it if they get out of trouble and get out of payments or get out of marriage because the woman was too afraid, too alone, too scared to make the right choice. On a spiritual level, there is scarcely a sin in the Bible held in greater contempt by God than the shedding of innocent blood. there's different classifications, if you will, about sin. There's regular sin, which all of us do each and every day. We miss the mark. We miss what God intended for us. There's another classification called abominations. Abominations are sins that God never thought of, because they are outside. In our Constitution, we talk about the nature of God and God's nature. They're outside of nature. I spoke a moment ago about how there's nothing more fulfilling and more grand than a woman with a child and giving birth to that child. That we talk in nature, don't meet a bear robbed of its cubs. Abortion kills maternal instinct. Abortion turns the womb into a tomb. That is an abomination. That is something God never intended. He never thought of a womb becoming a tomb as His perfect will. Here's the point, though. We are not to come against the gates of hell with hate. We're not supposed to come to the gates of hell with moral superiority, or a holier-than-thou attitude, or condemnation or judgment. God told the prophet Jeremiah, extract the precious from the worthless. St. Paul told us that the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. They're not human weapons, but they're mightily and divinely powerful for the tearing down of strongholds. This building and this movement represents a stronghold, a demonic stronghold in America that has to be torn down. But it won't be torn down by politics. The only thing that will tear it down is the grace and mercy of God changing hearts and changing minds. That is the only thing that's going to change that. And for that, we need to return to being a people of prayer, a people of faith that will share our lives, share our faith, share our testimony, but also sacrifice. Because many of these women, the reason they go to a place like this is they're afraid. We have to offer them a refuge. Time, energy, and money, up to and including being willing to adopt. So again, the weapons of our warfare against the gates of hell have to be divinely inspired. So my opponent in this race, Luke Carbajal, stands with Planned Parenthood. I'm here today to stand against it and everything it represents. And I would appreciate your support. About one quarter of the Christian community votes on a regular basis. 50% are not even registered. Folks, when you read the scriptures, you'll find out that times of revival and reformation came when the church or God's people accepted responsibility for the rot in their society and the darkness in their society. Because we're supposed to be the salt and light. So if there's rottenness and there is darkness, part of that is on us for not being a brighter light and not doing more to preserve society from that rot. And one of the easiest ways to do that is simply voting, registering to vote and voting. If the church in California voted, California could once again be a godly place to live. So thank you for having me and thank you for being here.
Wow. I'm on fire because that guy's on fire, man. That's awesome.